So welcome to the Institute for Spirituality and Health. We've worked hard to organize this event, so it's always rewarding to feel this room full of energy from attentive eyes and ears. I'm so happy to see you all here for what is sure to be a special evening, a truly special evening. I use special here intentionally, not in the way we're accustomed to hearing it. It's often thrown around for lack of a better, more descriptive adjective. I use it very purposefully to mark this evening as something unusual, something we don't experience every day or even very often. I use special here to mean that this evening is one that is set apart. What makes it set apart? Well, first of all, this evening is set apart. It's special because to arrive here you had to deviate from your comfortable routine to make your way to ISH. What do you normally do on Tuesday nights? What about this event caught your eye and made you come here this evening? It's not convenient to access these types of stories we'll hear tonight, so I thank you for taking that time. We all carry stories of sacred moments around with us, but we must listen carefully to hear them. We must be in the right place at the right time. Sometimes they come as a mere whisper. Tonight, all of you have made the effort to listen for that whisper. You are all in the right place at the right time. All of you who decided to come this evening made an active decision to set aside your routine and come to witness these stories of sacred moments in medicine. You have set this evening apart, so for that reason it is special. This evening is also set apart because of its subject matter, a subject matter that you don't happen upon on the evening news. These words are not the currency of news anchors, NBA commentators, or sitcom writers. No, these words are grounded in intimate personal experience. These stories have been crafted and fashioned from experiences in a field that is defined by vulnerability. These stories don't take place on a global stage. They take place in communities, in families, and in individuals. They take place in hearts and in spirits. So not only is the process by which you came to hear these stories special, but the words themselves are special. Because of their location in the deepest waters of our soul and because of the unique, irreplaceable experiences that gave them life, these stories are in one sense secret stories. As I said before, they are difficult to access. They are not available to everyone. In my experience, the keepers of these stories are not willing to share them with any old passerby. Only certain of us have the privilege of hearing them. It takes time to pin them down and to understand them and to come to terms with their meaning. Our culture often sweeps them under the rug for these reasons. It is easier to look past them. There is no interpretive formula or shortcut here. There's no recipe. So tonight we are engaging in secret talk. You will hear and reflect on stories that aren't available to lazy minds. In order to really hear these stories, you will have to look inwards. You'll have to draw on the power of your own secrets. You will have to draw on the power of your own stories. It is for these reasons that tonight is set apart. We made the effort to bear witness to the power of secret talk. That is something sacred, and that is something special. So with that, I'd like to introduce you to our first speaker. Marcia Brennan is an associate professor of art history and religious studies at Rice University. Her research engages modern and contemporary art history and museum studies, mysticism and comparative religion, and the emerging field of the medical humanities. She's the author of several scholarly books, including Curating Consciousness, Mysticism and Modern Museum. Dr. Brennan serves as an artist in residence in the Department of Palliative Medicine at the MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston. Her experiences in this clinical setting represent the subject of her current book project, Words Beyond Words, Finding Language at the End of Life. If you could welcome Marcia Brennan.
Thank you, Stuart. And I just wanted to thank you, Stuart, for this kind invitation to reflect on these sacred moments in healthcare. And first, let me just provide a little bit of background for this talk. So in my day job, yes, I am an associate professor of art history and religious studies at Rice. But in addition to my academic life at Rice, since early 2009, it's been my extraordinary privilege, really, to serve as an artist in residence in the Department of Palliative Care and Rehabilitation Medicine at MD Anderson. So in the hospital context, I work as a creative writer with individuals at the very end of life. Not surprisingly, a great deal of this work engages themes of religion and spirituality, as well as their creative translation into literary and visual forms. So quite often, these narratives incorporate various numinous elements as seemingly ordinary subjects and everyday places become invested with extraordinary significance. And those themes are indeed the topic of my current book project, Words Beyond Words. And the work I'm presenting today is drawn from this text, and the images that I'll be showing you are illustrations that were commissioned for this book from the West Coast visual artist Lynn Smallwood. So just to be clear, these are not images that were produced in situ with the patients, partly because that's a HIPAA violation, and partly because I'm not a visual artist. These are indeed book illustrations that were commissioned separately. So let me just tell you what the practice itself entails. I work on both the acute palliative care inpatient unit and on the palliative care outpatient clinic. And in that context, I assist patients and their caregivers in constructing meaningful narratives to express their insights and experiences. So the way that I think about this is that I primarily serve as a translator, but a lot of what I translate is ineffable. I create a context and I provide some critical skills so that people facing just extraordinarily difficult life situations have an opportunity for personal and symbolic expression, which then becomes clothed in aesthetic form. So in that way, the unrepresentable can become representable. As an artist in residence, I constantly confront the challenge of creating human connections across a formidable gulf of separation. Frequently, when I initially approach a patient, I'm told that the work sounds interesting, but I have no artistic ability. Okay, so this invites me to respond, well, let's just say for a moment that you did have artistic ability. What images would you want to write about? But depending on the circumstances, and these are very, very tender circumstances, as you can imagine, I might just ask the person, where are you from? What do you love to do? Or even more simply, but never ever simply, what do you love? What do you love? Sometimes sitting with people, especially if they're short of breath, I'll just ask them directly. If I were to ask you if you had an image in your mind of something that has special meaning for you, and it can be anything in the world, and I do mean anything, what would that be? So very often a flash of illumination will become visible on the person's face, and they'll share an image with me. They'll briefly describe a scene or a subject while I just gently encourage them to talk and make notes to help crystallize their thoughts. Once the artwork is complete, I read the person's words back to them while making any additions or corrections that they indicate. Then I inscribe that narrative into a handmade paper journal, and I brought one with me, and I'll just pass this around. It's handmade paper with some pressed flowers and blank cream-colored pages, and they're specifically made up for this work. And so in that way, the person can use the journal as a journal for this point in their lives, or the journal can function as a legacy gift that performs a kind of memorial function for the family. It's a way to draw everybody together at this time, to invite everyone to contribute, and something to hold on to when things are breaking apart. So the portable microenvironment of the text provides a durable yet tender memory of this transient moment in their lives. As you can imagine, while working in the hospital setting, I have seen and heard some amazing things, which I will now share with you. But just before I do that, I just want to say, too, this work would never be possible without the support of the chairman of the Department of Palliative Medicine, Eduardo Brayera, Dr. Eduardo Brayera. I don't know if anybody in here knows him, and Dr. Jennifer Wheeler. Eduardo is just incredible. He's the most incredible doctor and administrator. And Jennifer Wheeler, Dr. Wheeler, works in phase 1 clinical trials, and she came here from Sloan Kettering in New York, but before she came here, she somehow got the idea that she needed to fund a nonprofit organization. So in her spare time, right, she funded a 501c nonprofit, and it's called Collage, the Art for Cancer Network. And so my pass-through with the hospital, and they provide the art supplies, is through Collage. So it's really Eduardo and Jennifer that provide that kind of just administrative infrastructure that enables this work to happen. Okay, so now for the stories. Stuart? This is not. Okay. The first story is called, thank you. The first story is called Like Pearls. So this visit was unlikely to have happened at all because there were so many complicating factors in play. The patient was an extremely frail elderly man who only earlier that morning had undergone a surgical procedure. When I first looked into his room, the man was lying in bed, still groggy from anesthesia. When I returned a few hours later, he was awake and all alone. He was from the United Arab Emirates, and he spoke only limited English. I introduced myself and asked if he'd like to visit with me. He informed me that this was not a good time, but that I could return later that afternoon when his son was there to serve as a translator. About an hour later, I saw the man's son standing at the foot of his bed. I introduced myself and asked where the family was from. The son described their home in Abu Dhabi, and he told me the details of his father's distinguished professional career in the Middle East. Listening closely to the conversation, the elderly man described the landscape of their country and of their family farm, including the various animals and crops that they produced there. He emphasized to me, "I love to stay at home. God has given me a farm." So when I asked him if he had an image in his mind of something that was particularly special and meaningful to him, I fully anticipated hearing more about the farm and the agricultural landscape. But no. This elderly man thoughtfully closed his eyes and considered the question with such care and such tenderness. And then he responded that he had so many images, but that there was one in particular that his mind kept returning to now. This man was in his 80s. So as he was reflecting, his language shifted to Arabic, and his son translated a story of great wisdom and poignancy, as he told me. "We are from Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates. This landscape is fantastic. It's the desert. When I was a boy, they decided I should go to sea to find pearls. We spent several months on a raft to search for pearls. That was before the oil was discovered. Previous days are better than now. The sheiks would come and sip tea in the yard and visit for hours. There was no violence, and everyone was so close. I worked on top of the boat. Before the oil, this was what we did. I'm thinking of this now because those days are much better. All the people in the neighborhood were like a family. People were very happy, and the pearls were very beautiful." With its overtones of longing, this man's story is consistent with poetic descriptions of contemporary Gulf life and the economic and cultural transitions associated with the shift between pearls and oil. Thus, the pearls in this man's story are at once existentially and metaphorically significant. The gems represent this man's experiences with the actual pearls and the places where they dove for them, as well as his important memories of his childhood and of the people and culture that he loved so dearly. In turn, these associations are strung together like pearls throughout his narrative. Reflecting these themes, Lynn Smallwood's illustration features an expansive ocean whose far horizon line evokes a distant perspective of place and time. Rendered in soft pastel with fine details drawn in soft pencil, the artistic media are instrumental in creating the drawing's delicate etheric qualities. As the vivid memory of the scene crystallized into form in the man's story, the ephemeral became enduring. In turn, the drawing reflects these themes through the image's flotational quality, as tiny figures appear like dark silhouettes, perched lightly atop a simple raft. The raft drifts on the open sea beneath a seemingly endless sky that's filled with clouds that evoke the soft luster of pearls. In so many end-of-life stories, there are no fixed categorical boundaries between the sacred and the profane, as familiar domestic objects often become invested with profound spiritual insights and sacred perspectives. These themes were evident the day that I worked with a middle-aged woman who was very ill at the end of her life. This woman suffered from neurocranial cancer with advanced brain metastasis, a condition that caused her to vacillate between states of great clarity and pronounced confusion and delirium. She'd also have periods in which she would just blank out entirely. Despite all of this, the nurse who provided the actual bedside care for this patient urged me to go in and try to work with her. This turned out to be a wonderful idea, as this very frail woman remained lucid throughout our visit, and she very much appreciated the interaction. Sitting quietly together, this woman spoke about her passion for gardening with wildflowers, and she described her fondness for having charming things displayed in her home. In particular, she spoke of her love of paisley prints and the unique meanings that these designs held for her as metaphorical expressions of spiritual insight. I listened closely and wrote this woman's story in her favorite color so that her words appeared elegantly inscribed in gold on the cream-colored paper. Her story is entitled Paisley, A Viewpoint of the All. As she told me, I love gardening. I had wildflowers, and at a ranch I planted a huge field of lavender. The flowers came back every year, and it's beautiful at the ranch. I also love paisley, and I always have paisley on my mind. I like bright colors. With paisley, the color mixture is so nice and flowing. One color looks like it came out of the other. I like to have God as my savior. I'm interested in the mixture of all religions. With that, you get a viewpoint of the all, like paisley. Stories are just one more beautiful than the other. I mean, palliative is the most incredible field of medicine. After I read this woman her story, she expressed some surprise that she'd actually spoken those words aloud, since, as she told me, she tended to be quite shy and reserved about her spirituality. As I was leaving the room, she thanked me and said, quote, "I've been just blown away to sit back at this age and know why God keeps you in his arms." In the abstract decorative designs of paisley, this woman found an evocative metaphor to describe her perception of the ways in which forms and meanings could materialize and dematerialize, crystallize and dissolve. This fluid, transitional imagery enabled her to find words to represent an otherwise unrepresentable vision of inclusive divine presence. In turn, Lynn Smallwood's pencil illustration features layers of minimalist forms that were inspired by fields of lavender and the repeating patterns of paisley. In this spare drawing, the dense stems and leaves of the flowers meld with the soft abstract forms that comprise the curvilinear patterns of paisley prints. Combining these resonant elements, the artist creates an open, stylized design that extends across this delicate visual field. In this woman's narrative, the invisible made its appearance within the visibility of the material world, as the macrocosm became clothed within the microcosm. Through the correspondences that she perceived between the inclusive flowing patterns and the chromatic resonance of wildflowers and paisley, we were able to sit together and imagine the unimaginable, a viewpoint of the all, as this woman shared her vision of the garden in the garden, the life within the life. Another day, I worked with an extremely elderly man who, only a few years prior, had lost everything he owned in a devastating natural disaster, Hurricane Rita. When he lost his home and his land, he also lost his ability to raise animals. For about an hour, this frail, elderly man told me a story of heartbreaking loss. Yet he also told a story of the deep love he experienced while inhabiting a living sanctuary. His narrative links wild and domestic animals to liminal indoor and outdoor spaces. In turn, these transitional zones become poignant metaphors of hope and the continuity between life and the afterlife. This man's story is called The Canopy of Birds. My love was birds, pigeons, doves, finches, parakeets, and canaries. Oh, I loved the canaries. In the storm, we lost everything. Before the hurricane wiped everything out, I had little rooms built that went inside and outside the house, where I used to keep birds. I would raise and sell canaries. I did pretty well at it, too, but I really did it for the love of it. I always did love the birds. I just had a knack for raising them, and I loved all of them. Now I've lost my land and my ability to have my animals with me. When I die, I want to be reunited with my birds in heaven. I want to look up and see the birds flying like a canopy over my head. The bird is the closest thing you can get to an angel. Reflecting these themes, Lynn Smallwood's illustration evokes multiple temporal, spatial registers through an ascending view of numerous birds in flight overhead. While the nuanced pastel drawing creates an overall impression of atmospheric softness, the etheric yet detailed forms of the birds emerge through complementary soft pencil drawing. The diminutive forms of gray pigeons and white doves appear to be haloed against amorphous white clouds in an open blue sky that evokes the firmament. Thus, the scene is naturalistically recognizable, just as the imagery suggests a sense of imaginative multiplicity. That is, the birds appear as they would in life, even as they're pictured as hovering in a transitional zone that evokes the afterlife. Such multiplicities of associations were also evident the day that I visited with a man who was extremely ill with advanced renal cell carcinoma. His voice was very soft, and I had to lean forward in order to hear him. This man had worked as a lab technician in the oil refineries, and his work took him far out into the fields. Speaking very quietly, this man told a fascinating story about the time the stars came down to meet me. As he recalled, "In my day job, I worked outside in the field. I adjust to wherever I am. I liked it out in the desert. The sunsets are unbelievable, and the sky is dark, dark. I've gone out at night with my telescope, and the stars are incredible. One time, it was like the stars were coming down to meet me, and something special was happening between me and them. Living itself is an art form. Now, I don't know how I'm doing it, except that I'm doing it with God. For me, God is peaceful, very peaceful. It's like he has a face and he doesn't have a face. He's always there, and he's always comfort. My image of God is of a face without a face, like the stars coming down to meet me." Yeah, it's amazing, is it not? People will say these things to me. So interestingly, in technical terms, this man's end-of-life story represents a vivid expression of what religious studies scholars call apophatic spirituality. Apophaticism is characterized by such reciprocal crystallizations and dissolutions of form and meaning, presence and absence, speaking and unsaying. Thus, in saying the unsayable, a person attempts to find words to name a subject that lies beyond words, inherently unnameable. Such simultaneous affirmations and negations are employed to express a sense of sacred experience that intrinsically transcends the boundaries of language itself. Much like the elusive stars that fall from the sky but never quite reach the ground, this man's paradoxical image of God as a face without a face represents a powerful affirmation of a negation that evokes a numinous conjunction of worlds. In turn, Lynn Smallwood's expressive charcoal illustration depicts a landscape after sunset where shooting stars leave glowing trails in the nighttime desert sky. The last traces of the fading sun are visible against the dark ground of the low horizon, while the velvet black sky holds a stream of sparkling silver-white stars. In this scene, the sky is the place where the heavens meet the earth, like the shooting stars that fall toward the ground below. This naturalistic landscape thus serves as another metaphor and microcosm for so many end-of-life images in which, in the expansive darkness, we encounter a scene of cosmic brilliance. All of which brings us back one final time to the hospital room. This time I'll begin with Lynn Smallwood's image. In this graphite drawing, a woman lies very still in her hospital bed with her body connected to assorted IV bags and related hospital equipment. The woman's dark, reclining form contrasts with the brightness of her face and with the subtle layer of light that extends around the edges of her silhouette. The drawing's textured graphite surface features gentle tonal modulations that create a subtle pathway of light, linking the various registers of the composition. Thus, floating directly above this woman is a complementary image of her upright, etheric form, which stands poised on the threshold of an open doorway made of light. Here's the story. I spent several wonderful hours with a woman who was an artist and a businesswoman, formerly the CEO of a corporation. While this woman was in the final stages of advanced leukemia, the day that I met her, she was absolutely glowing. She told me about the transition she had only just made from a state of excruciating pain to one of relative comfort, which the palliative medications had made possible. Again, this was a visit that really almost didn't happen because this woman had only just received strong pain medicine, and initially she told me that she was drowsy. Yet we began chatting, and the conversation just didn't stop. In particular, she told me that while she does not adhere to any religious system, in particular, she has strong Tibetan Buddhist leanings. As she spoke, I wrote her story. After I read the narrative aloud, she cried for several minutes. She said that she'd never been able to express this before, and she couldn't believe that I'd captured it. 10 days later, this woman passed away peacefully at MD Anderson. Her story is entitled, I'm calling it Enlightenment. For so long, I've lived in such intense pain. The pain was all-encompassing. Many people were sending me love from all over the world, and I couldn't receive that love. Those were the bad days. Then I came here, and I just surrendered. I felt the release of that pain, and the letting go, and the light of my friends, and the unconditional love came through. Before yesterday, I felt a little radiant. Today, I feel radiant. I keep thinking, is this death? It's letting go. And I keep thinking, this is so beautiful. I don't know what to call it. It's very difficult to put in words. And now, I'm just a conduit, so I'm calling it enlightenment. Thank you.